Hey everyone, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. First to open up, I'm recording this on the last day of September, Monday, September the 30th. So first, for National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, it's just all about raising awareness and bring light to the attention of all the residential schools. You know, all the Every Child Matters movement, where many Aboriginals, for example, went to residential schools and never came home. That's kind of the quick way to acknowledge it, and the CFL actually has done a great job at acknowledging that with Indigenous themed logos. So anyway, to get to the topic at hand for this video, not meaning to segue into one thing over to another, but this year in 2024, my Calgary Stampeders, we are in danger of missing the playoffs. Yeah, our first time in, I guess you could say 20 years, 19 seasons. Remember, we didn't have a season in 2020 because something happened that's wrecked everything. But the Calgary Stampeders, after 2004, when they missed the playoffs for 3 straight years during the F Troop days, have made the playoffs from 2005 up to last season. But it's not looking good. That streak will continue. It's the longest in franchise history as of this point. But it's looking like it's not going to happen in 2024, and it might be somewhat best to force some potential changes. But before I get to throw out a bunch of numbers, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like and subscribe, and have my other social media links down in the description below. But we're in the last month of the 2024 CFL regular season, and 2 teams have already clinched playoff spots, and means there's 4 more up to grads, but no one has been mathematically eliminated yet. But if you look at the standings after week 17 of play, if you go out to the East Division, well, the Montreal Alouettes, they actually have clinched the East Division, so they'll at least be hosting the East Final. It'll be on Saturday. It'll be November. Yeah, the games will be on Saturday this season. It would be November the 14th, if I got the date right. But it's the second week of November that the Montreal Alouettes will host the East Final. They have a record of 11-3-1. Then second place is the Ottawa RedBlacks. They are 8-6-1. The Toronto Argonauts are 8-7-0. And then Hamilton is 6-9 for fourth in the East. Now if you go out west, where the Calgary Stampeders are, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they have clinched a playoff spot. They are first in the West Division, so they are 9-6-0. Second place actually now is the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They are 7-7-1. Then the BC Lions, they've been up and down. I thought they were looking at to be Grey Cup contenders. They have Nathan Rourke back, but they are third place at 7-8. And then the Edmonton Elks, they are in fourth place at 5-10, and my Calgary Stampeders were sitting at 4-9-1 after week 17. Calgary does have one more game to play than everybody else, because everyone else is going to have a bye week. But the best possible record that the Calgary Stampeders will have this season, if they happen to run the table, they'll be 8-9-1. So best we could do, if we get some help, is we could still maybe finish second or third in the West Division, or even possibly catch the Toronto Argonauts, because we have that tie if a crossover is needed. But I think I'm just fooling myself at this stage as we look at the remaining games for the Calgary Stampeders, as they have 4 games left. I'll look at the remaining games for everyone else and season series, and I'll come to the conclusion that we are in danger of missing the playoffs in 2024. The remaining 4 games the Calgary Stampeders have. Well, Friday, October the 4th, they'll be in BC to take on the BC Lions. Then on Saturday, October the 12th, the Calgary Stampeders will be at home to host the Edmonton Elks, and that'll be the last home game of the regular season for Calgary. And then the final 2 games that will both be on the road. It'll be on Friday, October the 18th. Calgary goes to Hamilton, take on the Hamilton Argonauts. And then the last game of the regular season, last week of the regular season, on Saturday, October the 26th, the Calgary Stampeders will be in Saskatchewan, taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Also, if you break down the record even more for the Calgary Stampeders, at home, we're a respectable 4-3-1, and the least worst we can do is have a 500 record at home. That means on the road, we have yet to win. We're 0-6 on the road. So we got 3 of the last 4 games of the regular season are on the road, and we have not yet won the road, and how the team has looked basically since the end of July. We've only won 1 game, and that was back on the August long weekend. I'm still not liking the odds. So strength of schedule, I mean, it's balanced, but the fact we have 3 out of 4 on the road where the Calgary Stampeders have yet to win on said road, it's looking tough. But if you look at the rest of the teams, the Edmonton Elks remaining schedule, well, on Saturday, October the 5th, the Edmonton Elks, they host the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And then on Saturday, October 20th, the Edmonton Elks come here, take on the Calgary Stampeders. And then they have a bye for week 20, the second last week of the season. And then on Friday, October 25th, they go on their host the Toronto Argonauts. And actually, the Edmonton Elks, they've kind of struggled just as equally at home and on the road. They actually are 2-5 at home, and they're 3-5 on the road. And then they have 2 games at home. So if you look at that trend, maybe that could give some help for Calgary. So now if you go to the BC Lions remaining games, they also have 3 games left. Actually, they'll wrap up their season earlier because they have the last week of the regular season off for a bye. So the remaining 3 games for the BC Lions, on Friday, October 4th, they'll be hosting the Calgary Stampeders. And then on Saturday, October 12th, they go to Saskatchewan to take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And then on Saturday, October the 19th, they host the Montreal Alouettes. And then, as mentioned, they have week 21 as a bye. Breaking down the BC Lions record, they are 4-3 at home, and they're 3-5 on the road. So they have been a little better at home, including winning against Calgary earlier in the year. Saskatchewan's always a tough place to go, especially this time of year. And then historically, usually with the cross-country travel, the Montreal Alouettes struggle in BC with the time change in the travel. That's the farthest that they travel for a game. So I'm going to say the BC Lions, depending on what the weather's like and the atmosphere is like in Saskatchewan, they have a somewhat favorable schedule, given that 2 of the final 3 games are at home, and they historically have played well against those said teams. Now with the Saskatchewan Roughriders remaining schedule, well, on Saturday, October the 5th, they are in Edmonton. Then we'll see how that plays out. Both teams are desperate at this stage. And then on Saturday, October the 12th, Saskatchewan's playing the BC Lions at home. And then they have a week 20 bye before Saturday, October 26th. They are hosting the Calgary Stampeders. So Saskatchewan's usually tough to play in Saskatchewan, and they are 4-3-0 at home, while they're 3-4-1 on the road. So, I mean, Saskatchewan, they'd struggle in the mid part of the season, but they slowly seem to be getting back on the rails. I mean, they're in second place now The only knock we have on Saskatchewan right now is are they able to stay composed, disciplined, not make any dirty tackles and the injury bug. And then the last Western team is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers' remaining schedule. On Friday, October 4th, they're in Hamilton to take on the Hamilton Tiger-Cats. And then on Friday, October 11th, they host the Toronto Argonauts. And then they have a bye week 20. And then on Saturday, October 26th, they go to play in Montreal. Winnipeg already has a playoff spot clinched, but they probably are looking to get a home playoff date. I still say they're in pretty good shape, even though the fact that 2 of their remaining 3 games are on the road. Winnipeg's definitely been also a tough place to play. It's one of the few stadiums that actually still been selling out the stadium. Well, the record actually backs it up too, because at home Winnipeg is 6-2, while on the road they are 3-4. So depending on what effort the Bombers can put in, they do have a couple games on the road, and depending on what they have to play for, especially that last game, both sides won't have anything to play for, because Montreal hosts the East Final, and maybe Winnipeg could have East or the West Final locked up, so maybe they have a favorable schedule that way. So now if you go out East, because you can look at the possibility of maybe crossing over if Calgary can take care of their own business. Well, the Hamilton Tiger-Cats' remaining games, well, on Friday, October the 4th, they are hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Then they have a bye week 19. And then on Friday, October the 18th, they're hosting the Calgary Stampeders. While they wrap up the season Friday, October 25th, they will be taking on the Ottawa RedBlacks. In Ottawa, Hamilton has been struggling on and off all year, despite the fact Bo has been picking up big numbers. But it seems like with Hamilton, it doesn't seem to matter if they're playing at home or on the road, because they're 3-4 at home, while they're 3-5 on the road. And I'm going to say they have, looking at least Winnipeg and Ottawa, they have tougher games to play with. And also depending on what's on the line, depending when those games happen. And then if we look at the Toronto Argonauts, there's still maybe a chance that Calgary may catch Toronto if we run the table and Toronto doesn't, or they run the table in reverse. Well, they have the bye in week 18. So the next game the Toronto Argonauts play, they're at Winnipeg on Friday, October 11th, so I think that's going to be a tough game. And then on Saturday, October the 19th, they host the Ottawa RedBlacks. And then on Friday, October 25th, they are in Edmonton. And I think Toronto's got a fairly tough final 3 games based on the fact that at home they are 6-2. However, on the road they're 2-5. And then I say Winnipeg and Ottawa are the tougher teams on their remaining schedule. Now if you look at the Ottawa RedBlacks, they also have a bye this week for week 18. And Ottawa's lost the last couple games where they've had a chance to at least clinch a playoff spot. But the next game the Ottawa RedBlacks play will be on Monday, October 14th, traditional Thanksgiving game. That game, they'll be in Montreal, so maybe Ottawa could rest up and be up for that game, maybe a potential East final preview. And then on Saturday, October the 19th, they are going to Toronto. 2 games on the road back-to-back, but Ottawa is kind of just in between, a flight distance away from Ottawa or Montreal and Toronto. And on Friday, October 25th, they host the Hamilton Tiger-Cats, depending on what is still left to be played on that day for both sides. But Ottawa, I'm going to say the fact that they have 2 games on the road might play a factor. Because Ottawa, they're 6-1-1 at home, but they are 2-5 on the road. And then the last game, which the last team we'll look at, is the Montreal Alouettes. They have clinched the East Division, so they know they're hosting the Eastern Final. And actually, thinking back, it's Saturday, November 9th. That will be the date, now that I have the November calendar more clearly in my head. But Montreal has a bye this week. And then on Monday, October the 14th, they host the Ottawa RedBlacks. And then on Saturday, October the 19th, they go to BC to take on the BC Lions. And then on Saturday, October 26th, they are hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So I'm going to say the tough part of the Montreal Alouettes schedule is the fact that they play on Monday, Thanksgiving Monday, and then go cross country to take on the BC Lions. But Montreal, it's all about them just trying to stay sharp, not get too rusty, and stay healthy. And then they're just as dominant both at home or on the road. Actually at home, they are 5-2-0, while on the road they're 6-1-1. So that's the remaining schedules that we have left for each of the teams. I mean, Calgary's the only team that plays 4 games. It's going to be somewhat tough based on the fact that Calgary's yet to win on the road. They're the only team in the CFL to not win on the road yet this season. And then, if we somehow make the playoffs, take a look at how they've done in season series. I think I'm definitely going to pinpoint that Ottawa game in Ottawa was when the season came off the rails. But versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, this season Calgary has won 1, where the home team won both games. On week 4, it was Saturday, June the 29th. Calgary did beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 22-19 in overtime. That was the game that Premier of Houston caught an interception in the end zone, set up Rene Paredes to kick the winning field goal. But then a couple weeks later, Winnipeg got some revenge on Friday, July the 12th, as it was a high-scoring, thrilling game. I think there was a few plays that Calgary couldn't hold them late, but Winnipeg won 41-37. So despite the fact that each team won, Winnipeg gets the season series as they beat us by 4. We beat them by 3, so point differential. Winnipeg takes the season series by a point. And now the Saskatchewan Roughriders, well, we lost the 1 game against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We do have 1 more game left with the Saskatchewan Roughriders last week of the season. It was week 16 on Friday, October the 20th. The Saskatchewan Roughriders defeated the Calgary Stampeders 37-29 here in Calgary. But in order for Calgary to take the season series, is the fact that for the week 21 on Saturday, October the 26th, Calgary needs to win by 9 points. 9, because Saskatchewan beat us by 8. That could also be a challenge, because Calgary, when they get later in the season series, we've only beaten someone at most by 8 points in the games that we won. Now the very, very interesting part of the season series is the BC Lions. Calgary is 1-1, or both Calgary and BC have 1 game each, and there's 1 more game left to be played. When you follow with the remaining games, first was week 2, Saturday, June the 15th. The BC Lions defeated the Calgary Stampeders 26-17. Then in week 7 on Sunday, July the 21st, that was the game when we put Wally Bono on the Wall of Fame. Calgary won that game by 25-24. So there is 1 more game for the rubber match, and that would be on week 18 on Friday, October the 4th. Whoever wins that game will take the season series. But the fact that there's been 2 ties in the league this season, including the Calgary Stampeders being involved in a tie game, if this game ends in a tie, BC will take the season series because they would have the 8-point differential from beating us by 9, and we beat them by 1. But 99% for sure somebody's going to win that game and it will take the season series. That could be huge, potentially on maybe catching them in 3rd. So now when it comes to the Edmonton Elks, well, they've already, spoiler alert, they've already taken the season series against the Calgary Stampeders, as Edmonton is 2-0 against the Calgary Stampeders. We do have 1 more game against them. On Labor Day, week 13 on Monday, September the 2nd, Edmonton Elks did defeat the Calgary Stampeders 35-20. And then the following week, the rematch, week 14 on Saturday, September the 7th, Edmonton had their way. They defeated Calgary 37-16. So regardless Edmonton has won the season series outright. But the Week 19 game on Saturday, October the 19th, there could be something to still play for either side to keep their playoff hopes alive, depending on what happens this week, which I'll get to the conclusion. Now, if we go out east, just for the sake of it, maybe if we play them later in the season in the playoffs, well, against the Montreal Alouettes, Calgary lost one and tied one. It was on Week 5 on Saturday, July the 6th. The Calgary Stampeders historically struggle in Montreal, and that trend continued, but we only lost by 4 as we lost 30-26 in Montreal. And then Week 15 on Saturday, September the 14th, that was the tie game where both Calgary and Montreal had to settle for a tie. That game also went to overtime, obviously. There was a 19-19 tie, but Montreal still takes the season series by 4 points, but season series doesn't matter when it comes to crossover. It has to be an outright record so if Calgary and, let's say, Toronto had the same record, Toronto will still get the tiebreak. The cross only works if the record is greater. Now the Ottawa RedBlacks, well, Ottawa, we were 0-2 against Ottawa this year. Week 8, this is where I felt the season really started going south. For the Calgary Stampeders on Friday, July the 26th, Ottawa destroyed the Calgary Stampeders 33-6 in Ottawa. And then Week 11 on Thursday, August the 15th, Ottawa won a tight one, 31-29 on the last second field goal. So Ottawa takes that season series outright. So we can't catch Ottawa. They could theoretically have the same exact 8-9-1 record as the Calgary Stampeders, but we won't be able to catch them in a crossover situation. We still could potentially with the Toronto Argonauts because we have that tie, but Toronto has to lose outright. But both Toronto and Calgary, they split a game with the home team winning both games. It was Week 9, Saturday, August the 2nd. That was the last game the Calgary Stampeders have won going into October, as Calgary won that game 27-23. We did have to come back from 17 points down to win that game. And in Week 10, that was the game I actually went on my Toronto trip on the following week, Friday, August the 9th. The Toronto Argonauts won that game 39-25 with the pick 6 and the punt returning we allowed for a touchdown. So Toronto wins that season series by 10 points. By that, and then last with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, well, the Calgary Stampeders have the lead right now, as that was the first game of the season that the Calgary Stampeders on Friday, June the 7th, I meant to say, we defeated the Hamilton Tiger Cats 32-24, and Bo's returned to Calgary. And that's the biggest larger-than-maker victory the Calgary Stampeders have had in their 4 games this season. And in Week 20, on Friday, October 18th, the Calgary Stampeders will be playing in Hamilton, and who knows what could be on the line still for that game. But Calgary right now leads the season series by 8 points. So to come to conclusion, Calgary is not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but I think I'm just fooling myself thinking there's still a chance in that Dumb and Dumber line. But there's still a possibility that we could be eliminated after this week. Realistically, I think the team needs to run the table, win all 4 games, and get a little help in the process. It would definitely help if we win outright and take the season series against the BC Lions to potentially get 3rd. Maybe we could pass Saskatchewan if we beat them by 9 in Saskatchewan. Keep in mind, we have not yet to win on the road, and we're talking about BC and Saskatchewan. That's why we're still thinking, kind of fooling myself. But this team needs to run the table, and what they've shown, do you think we're suddenly going to win 4 in a row in October, since we've only won 4 games up to this point? So we need some help too if we run the table. We could be mathematically eliminated from playoff contention after Week 18 play if the Calgary Stampeders lose to the BC Lions and the Saskatchewan Roughriders defeat the Edmonton Elks. So maybe next week at this time, we'll be not making the playoffs officially instead of still being in danger. If we win, then we will still be alive for another week. And then that Calgary-Edmonton game will be huge for both teams just to play for survival. And as mentioned, the team has not won on the road yet this season, and the largest margin of victory Calgary has been by 8 points. And I think right now, if you look at the standings, well, Montreal has clinched Eastern Final, so they're in. I think Ottawa, they've improved this season, and in fact they've played strong at home. They are fairly safe to make the playoffs. Hamilton did win that big game against the Toronto Argonauts, but they're not going to face off against each other the rest of the season. But if Hamilton gets on a run, Toronto falls off, I still think Toronto has enough runway to make the playoffs. So I don't think there's going to be a crossover. There's still the possibility, but that's why I say a lot needs to happen for Calgary to get in through the East crossover. And then if you look out west, well, I think Winnipeg they've clinched the playoff spot. I'm going to think they're likely going to host the West Final. And then BC and Saskatchewan, they've kind of just been limping lately. So whoever gets the right game going will host the West semifinal. So I think, sadly, the Hamilton Tiger Cats with both Alberta teams, the Edmonton Elks and the Calgary Stampeders, I think we're going to miss the playoffs. However, I think we might need to have that happen to force some potential changes, obviously on the roster and maybe behind on the sidelines. As last year we made the playoffs despite the fact that we had a 6-12 record to keep the playoff streak alive, but that was because Calgary won the 2 games that they needed to win the most, which was the game in BC and that game against Saskatchewan here, because Saskatchewan, after Labor Day, they lost every game down the stretch, and the Edmonton Elks, they were historically so bad in the first half of the season, and then they had like something ridiculous like 22 straight home games that they lost, that they went 5-4 the rest of the season, but they were 5-13 because of the very, very poor first half. I mean, the East, I'm going to say, is a little stronger than the West this season, but I think I'm just fooling myself thinking we still have a chance. I think we're going to miss the playoffs. I mean, it's been a nice long run. I mean, the last time the Stampeders missed the playoffs, we still had Michael Federick running the team. At least Fred Pateri was out of the picture. Matt Dunigan was head coach. And then I also got to throw in that Ralph Klein was the Premier of Alberta. Dave Bronconnier was the Mayor of Calgary. And Paul Martin, the Liberal, was the Prime Minister of Canada. And Calgary was still sobering up from the 2004 playoff run, so I think we are likely going to miss the playoffs. I mean, if we do, I think it might be wise to consider moving on from Jake Maier as the starting quarterback. He'll get a job somewhere in the CFL, but Jake Maier in some way almost kind of reminds me of Marcus Crandall that we had, that quarterback at the time. Yeah, he did win us the Grey Cup, but we still had great pieces on the team. 2001 that underachieved and had injuries and came together the right time in November, but he had flashes in the pans in his decisions he makes, and I think it might be time for Dave Dickinson to give up one of his hats and just be general manager, because I think we should promote Mark Killam to be the head coach, because I think also doing that so we don't lose Mark Killam as well, because you always keep hearing about vacancies in the coaching vacancies in the CFL, and Mark Killam always seems to be that ideal candidate, so we'll see what happens. I mean, I think you might need to miss the playoffs just to force some of these changes. I think how things worked out last year kind of just delayed it a little, but what do you think? Do you think we still have a chance? Or I think I'm just, being honest, I think I'm just fooling myself. The math still works, but the odds are really stacked against us. That are we going to suddenly win 4 in a row? We still need some help. And the fact that 3 of the last 4 games are on the road, have yet to win on the road, and the biggest margin of victory that Calgary's had was only by 8 points. But that's all I have. I mean, it was a nice long run. I mean, not gonna, I don't know, all CFL fans aren't gonna give me much sympathy considering the last quarter century Calgary has been one of the top teams in the league, and still think we could have still won a few more Grey Cups. But I guess, all good things eventually must come to the end, but, hopefully maybe if we move on from Jake Mayer, and maybe we'll get Vernon Adams Jr. from BC in a trade in the off-season, because they have committed lots of money to Nathan Rourke. But that remains to be seen. Still got another month of CFL football to enjoy, and regardless how the playoff picture comes to be, I still plan to do the on the road to the Grey Cup, like I have done, minus the Calgary Stampeders likely, but you don't know, we still got to play the games. So anyway, I want to close out and say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I have my other social media links down in the description below, and regardless what happens, I'm always a proud Calgary fan. Calgary Stampeders fan. I've had season tickets for 27 seasons, and unless something dramatically changes, I still intend to re-up my tickets. Hopefully, maybe and potentially move down, but we'll see. So I just want to say, go Stamps, go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.